Look closely at the corners of your room or the folders on your hard drive, and you will likely find a graveyard of half-finished projects. You see partially built robotics kits, stacks of books on entirely unrelated subjects, and canvases with just the background painted. You discover a new hobby, lose sleep for 3 days straight mapping out every detail, and buy all the necessary gear. Then, the exact millisecond your brain understands how the system works, your interest plummets to absolutely zero. From the outside, this looks like a chronic lack of discipline. The people around you, and maybe even you yourself, conclude that you lack the grit to stick with anything difficult, that you are unfocused or just plain lazy. But those abandoned projects tell a different story. The inability to cross the finish line here might stem from a mind that is operating entirely too fast. This pattern reflects a high-speed learning mechanism. For a highly efficient brain, interest is tied directly to the act of deciphering a new system. Once the core logic is extracted, the brain has no biological reason to continue. Quitting at the 80% mark represents a brain that has finished its primary job of processing. To stay engaged, we have to understand the specific neurological rules that govern this rapid drop in motivation. The reason your brain pulls the plug so abruptly comes down to its internal chemical currency. We often associate dopamine with achieving a goal, but neuroscience shows it is primarily tied to the process of discovery. Your brain feeds on informational surprise, releasing a continuous flood of neurochemicals while actively mapping hidden rules. An intelligent mind possesses advanced pattern recognition, identifying the underlying framework in a fraction of normal time. The moment that mental model is complete, the mystery is dead. Without a puzzle left to solve, the informational surprise disappears. Your brain halts dopamine production the exact second a task shifts from dynamic reasoning into entirely predictable repetition. Most people process information in a straight line, stepping neatly from point A to point B. A high IQ mind operates through layered cognition, holding multiple perspectives, variables, and potential outcomes simultaneously. This allows for pattern compression. When you enter a new field, you automatically synthesize seemingly unrelated facts across different disciplines into a single, cohesive mental framework. This chart visualizes the stark difference in how these minds acquire skills. While an average learning curve requires slow, steady repetition to achieve competence, the highly intelligent learning curve is nearly vertical. You reach the edge of what a topic can teach you in a matter of days. When the learning curve plateaus that sharply, the highly efficient processor in your brain immediately seeks out a completely new, far more complex challenge. Once that plateau is reached, routine work becomes physically and mentally exhausting. Without new patterns to dissect, the brain experiences a state of cognitive starvation, draining your energy and destroying your focus. This creates a friction point between your thoughts and your hands. You can instantly visualize the completed version of a project in your head, but the physical execution required to build it is slow and messy. This gap often triggers a defense mechanism. To protect the flawless internal concept from the messy judgment of reality, the brain signals boredom, forcing a retreat back into the planning phase where ideas remain perfect. This isn't an aversion to hard work. It is the reaction of a nervous system refusing to spend energy playing out the final moves of a game it has already simulated winning. Escaping this cycle requires a complete shift in strategy. You must stop trying to force a high-speed, parallel processing brain to operate on a linear societal framework. First, you have to upgrade your targets. Shift your focus away from simple hobbies and microtasks that can be figured out over a weekend. Direct your intelligence toward macro systems, fields that are infinitely complex and constantly evolving, like advanced coding, philosophy, or deep strategy. Second, practice working in a neutral mood. True self-control means training your mind to tolerate the repetitive execution phase long after the initial rush of discovery has faded. Finally, embrace the 80% rule. Once you have built the mental model and mastered the core pattern of a system, accept the role of the architect and intentionally delegate the remaining 20% of predictable execution to others. Quick boredom indicates high-speed processing. It is a clear signal that your current environment lacks the complexity required to keep your mind engaged. The goal is to find a track massive enough and complex enough to finally let your mind run at its true speed.